Swadika, welcome everyone back. This is another interesting session. Delighted to introduce you to our next panel, The Art of Gen Z, the Future of Brokerage. Let's welcome on stage the moderator, Ed Hancock, Director of Operations at Pelican Exchange.
Thank you. Welcome to our panel discussion. I think it is a very interesting topic. So I'll be asking various questions of the panel, and then we'll probably open it up to the audience for any questions, if there's time. But before I let the panel introduce themselves, I think it's probably quite helpful to just sort of briefly define what Gen Z is. Because I wasn't entirely sure. I thought I might have been Gen Z, but that's a little optimistic because they were born between 1996 and 2010. So some of them will be young teenagers, some of them might be sort of reaching a fairly senior part of their career, sort of early 30s. And so that's quite a range of people to consider. Their identity has been shaped by the digital age, of course, climate anxiety, a shifting financial landscape with the recession and the banking crisis and things like that, and of course COVID-19 as well. So some quite interesting things that have gone on in their generation. They're digital natives, so they were the first generation to grow up with the internet as part of daily life. I think when I was at university in my second year, Facebook kind of landed and had a massive impact. But of course they had it from day one. So the other thing to consider is they will make up a quarter of the population of the Asia-Pac region by 2025. So that's quite a considerable amount of people, and they'll impact us as employers, and I think they'll also impact us as clients. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Maybe they introduce us.
Ladies and gentlemen. Laura, go ahead.
Hi. Hello, my name is Laura-Liisa Lemetsaar. I'm representing Admirals. I'm looking over their Asia region expansions from anything related to building teams, operations, legalities. And I'm really, really excited to be in this panel today.
Thank you very much. And Andrew, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Andrew Lane. I'm the CEO of Acuity Trading. I started in the markets almost 20 years ago, a bit more than 20 years ago, working for the Wall Street Journal. 2012, I founded my company Acuity, which originally was a data science company. You've all heard of ChatGPT. That's where I come from, something called NLP, natural language processing, and NLG, natural language generation. And we started off by focusing on hedge fund markets, and we've got a plethora of clients in the US and London. And then we moved into the retail sphere, which is where we are today. And we provide research and tools based on AI, NLP, and also more traditional analysis to brokers. And I'm based in Barcelona, in Spain, and my company's based in London. And thank you for coming and listening.
Thanks very much. So we'll just crack on with the first question. Laura, I'll come to you. Have you had to adapt your brand to appeal more to Gen Zs? Do you feel your company actively targets them, and sort of what influence have they had?
Good question. Yes, like you said, they are going to be our future client. So it will be ridiculous not to take them into account. From Admiral's perspective, we are taking it more of a product approach. So we want to build products that are very easy to use for any kind of customer, which also will include Gen Z. And in terms of branding and what's the product offering, etc., we certainly keep this in mind when we did our rebranding from Admiral Markets to Admirals, because we have been around for 22 years now. So it's a constant evolution for our company as well, and especially when now I'm living in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, it's our Asia headquarters. So it has been even more important to focus on our product and app and things like that.
Yeah,
That
of
will
course,
be
yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah, I think 60% of Gen Zers' time is spent on their phones, which means, you know, you've got
Absolutely.
to. So, do you guys have an app that directly appeals to that?
Correct. Yeah. So we have investing app. So Admirals provides both trading and investing, and what we have seen is that investing is obviously something more appealing, maybe for Gen Zs or younger generation. It's nice to start with it, so they can easily do it in an app, and mobile is their best friend, like you said. It's funny how you said, like, you were introduced to Facebook and when you were in university, right? They grew up with Facebook. They grew up with like the first smartphones. They don't know Nokia, so.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because they're obviously, on the one hand, quite easy to reach, therefore, because they are there actively engaging with things that we kind of, I guess, are still learning to use or learning to adapt into in our lives. And they are directly sort of influenced by that. Andrew, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's actually quite interesting that you were saying about the apps being really useful. And we adapt ourselves to the audience we're targeting. And I think Admirals does a very good job of adapting itself to the whole world. It's got something to offer for everyone. It's got one of the companies of all the companies I work with, it has a very broad spectrum, and it's got a very methodical way of bringing out products. So it's good. But what we see in these conversations, like talking about Gen Z, is the fact of the matter is Gen Z, or social media, let's call it these days, is very quick and it's snappy. We've got reels, got it, bam, bam, bam. And people, we're then forced as brokerages to put ourselves into that bam, bam, bam. And that can then bring us constraints, like regulatory constraints. People are like, well, you can't do that. You've got to give people prior warning. And I remember when social media first came out and you had to put warnings on, and you were like, well, if you put the full warning of the FCA on a tweet, you couldn't fit it in because there's only 254 characters. So
and
we
they'll
had
probably
to
ignore it because it's too much hard work to read all that. Yeah, so
Your
it defeats
post
the
will be
purpose.
ignored anyways.
So we had to adapt. And in my world of providing research, you get companies saying, right, okay, so we've got to provide research in a reel. And I was like, oh, okay. So, obviously the first thing I do is that I go and ask my 13-year-old son what a reel is. And he then tells me, and he then becomes chief product officer for the day. And we then start creating, trying to cram in information into a reel. But you're like, this is prejudicial to the client because you can't fit in all the information you need into a reel. And so then you say, right, okay, well, we've got to use the reel to bring people into a wider experience, which is actually what Admiral is very, very good at, is creating a long line of bringing people through a channel. But all this Gen Z and stuff like that, it's funny how the whole, as an industry, we react to it, and other industries, I'm sure gambling and whatever it's sport and whatever it is, do the same. And you try and adapt to the market, but actually it's prejudicial to them. And sometimes you just can't do it.
Okay, that's really interesting, yeah, because there's more information you'd like to provide, or you're hoping that they'll take a sort of balanced view, look at the detail, and you just don't have time to provide that kind of detail, especially if there's warnings and things like that that you need to do or need to put in. So that's a real challenge, yeah. Did you want to come in on that, or are you, yeah?
No, I completely agree with this. Like we are used to putting out a lot of information out there because markets and financial services in general require a lot of explanation. And now the challenge is to actually how you're gonna include this audience to your product, right? Like how you're gonna reshape your communication, your ideas, your products to them, but that it's understandable as well, right? Because obviously risk warnings are long. You would not put them there, and also like lengthy explanations on regulations and compliances. They don't really think about it, don't really care about it. And I think it's not only Gen Z anymore. It's actually a huge portion of people. tired of
Yeah,
this.
we don't sort of have time. We literally, all we're made to believe we don't have time. And that's partly, I think, because of the volume of information there is out there. I guess it's really important if you're a broker to gain the trust of your clients. Like, why else would they keep coming back? Why would they use your platform? And yet, we know that even media outlets are fake news. I mean, it's everywhere. Even when the news is real, someone will call it fake. So, Andrew, have you seen with your research that you're doing? I mean, that just means there's obviously a huge volume. Have you seen a big impact on the sort of the quality of data that you can get, considering the volume and the potentially poor quality of all of that noise?
Yeah, there is. Actually, I'd like to just go back on that where you said fake news. In the financial market, well, in general, I come from a news background. I work for the Wall Street Journal. And recently, about 2 years ago, I think the Wall Street Journal got chucked out of China because the Chinese government didn't like what was written on the papers. And we also see in my home country, the UK, papers writing stuff which people then say is fake, and Trump says it's fake. And actually, what it is as an audience, we should understand there's a difference. There's commentary and there's news. Rarely will good news organizations get news wrong, especially like Bloomberg, Reuters, Dow Jones, Wall Street Journal. They have to have 2 or 3 sources to write a piece of a text before they put it. The Wall Street Journal got chucked out of China, not for its news, but for its commentary, its opinion pieces. And so when we look at media, we must differentiate between opinion, which is just one person's opinion, and news. And a lot of people out there pretend their opinions is actually news. And we've got to differentiate between what's opinion and news. Second of all, so walking away from the political side of things, this creates a big issue as well in the world of financial information. I'll take you back to an anecdote in 2007. I was working for the Wall Street Journal in Madrid, and this newspaper, claimed to be a newspaper, it was just a website, put out an article on probably Santander or Telefonica or something like that. The share price crashed. This website's called El Confidencial. The market was erupting. Everyone was stressed. And then Bloomberg or Wall Street Journal came in and said, no, it's not true. This is the true story. And the difference is because El Confidencial was putting out what we call a rumor. And they had one source. And what is little known is the major outlets of information like Bloomberg, Reuters, you have to have 2 or 3 sources to verify the fact before it's put out. And that comes to an adage where you say, buy the rumor, sell the fact. And that hasn't changed today. And we still see information being put out there today. I think there was something on Twitter recently, but you see it from time to time, and the markets crash. And it's not because people believe it, but people believe the old adage, buy the rumor, sell the fact. So this has led me to believe and opinionate that in the future, news organizations will become ever more important. Why? Because ChatGPT is going to be able to publish huge amounts of information. And users like us everywhere will not know whether an article that's been written is actually from a computer or whether it's from a real source. And so to your question, we're going to get huge amounts of information coming out there. But it doesn't mean it's not irrelevant, because rumors move markets. And then we're going to have to sift between the garbage of what no one's reading and the information that is potentially a rumor that will move the market. And then you have to, as a scientist in the world of data, textual science and stuff like that, you then have to work out what is the echo. So a rumor can come out, and then social media can amplify that, and we call that the echo. And that can mean that rumor is bigger and more important. The same as well for a news article. You know, one article can be published at the back of a paper, and it doesn't really move the market, but it gets echoed in other ways. And that's another thing about digital, is that a long time ago, if you got published in the Wall Street Journal on page 10, your article was dead. Or give you another example, PR. I used to know, and I still know, PR managers for big banks, big companies, and they will always put the pay rises of their their board right at the bottom of the press release. So you got 12 pages of press release, and then they bury the bad news right at the bottom. I remember Telefonica doing this about their results from Venezuela. They said, amazing results in Venezuela. And then one journalist put his hand up and said, okay, so how are you going to get that money out of Venezuela? Okay. So your results weren't actually that good. So they bury the results right at the bottom. But of course, with a computer, it doesn't matter whether it comes top, bottom, middle. I can read it in the blink of an eye, and my computer can react off that information. And so the world has changed in that sense. So all these rumor mills, information going in the wrong place, computers can sift through it and action it very quickly.
Do you think the Gen Z actually knows this kind of things that you have noticed?
Oh, shit, I forgot we were talking about Gen Z. I think when I started off in the world of NLP, people just didn't understand it. It was rocket science. And I think people are now becoming a lot more familiar with what's behind the scenes. You know, the idea that you can Google Translate, or, you know, I had a client come to the desk and she couldn't speak a word of English and I couldn't speak a word of Chinese, and we were talking using Google Translate. And that will become normal, and people will understand that's used through NLP and NLG, and then they'll understand the capabilities there. And so I think it will become part of the common lexicon of knowledge of what happens. And so, yeah, I think we'll find it hard to adapt who are older, but the young people will find it easier to adapt to technology like that.
I suppose that those results and things like that, as you said, they will pop up. A computer will find them. But you would need to know what to search for. So the Gen Zers, they've got all of this information. Millions more of them can trade because the app is on, you know, it's there, it's accessible, they can download it, and 1 minute later they're looking at, you know, volume and price and all that sort of stuff. But their understanding might be a lot lower than someone that turned to trading in the old days. In the old days, that's a bit depressing. But how do you capture their interest and make them sort of come to the app in the first place, but also sort of take it seriously if there's all the noise and they don't really necessarily know what to look for in the first place?
That's a very good point, and it's exactly through product. We want to make it easier for everyone to come and trade and invest and be part of this global financial markets, but it comes with a responsibility, right? That when you're making it accessible widely and everyone, and it's easy for everyone to understand, let's say, access it. Understanding is another thing, right? So you take a responsibility of actually educating them. So now we're coming into the era of how do you get this information through, like I mentioned before, right? There's all those lengthy, these explanations, how trading works, how investment works, how financial markets work, so that no one would actually be harmed by what they're doing, because it is risky to be there, right? So in Admirals, for example, we did this. We have this learn, trade, invest is our tagline, and we really have focused on this learning part, because and now the channels, right, where you learn. So we did like a little pilot in Indonesia where we focused only on education. We still have a company there, Academy Admirals, that is focusing on financial literacy and financial education, and we do it through social media, like Instagram, and TikTok, and it has been widely successful and really, really, let's say, we tap the market of young people who can read quality from a, let's say, experienced players in the market. And I think that's where financial services providers need to take this responsibility to explain really and to the way that they would understand it.
Yeah.
And where.
So I suppose that's potentially using influencers, but knowledgeable ones and ones that can be trusted. Is that right?
Yeah, we actually just hired a investment expert who is working with us fully. So he is the full-time creating content for us. And I think the content is the key for everyone nowadays. Like everything, every product you have, every idea you have, create a content and put it somewhere, right? But influencers is another good point, because like you said, they are mostly in their mobile. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram is where they consume their information, or young generation consumes their information. And there's a lot of false information. There's not a lot of filtrations there, and it's quite it's also affected, I think, the financial markets as a whole, because you would get all those like shiny things of like get rich tomorrow, and
Someone in a helicopter.
exactly, with a
throwing
bit of
money,
Ferrari and everything, and then you're like, okay, I guess that's the place for to be, right?
Yeah.
But actually, then you end up in there, and the reality is a little bit different. So,
So that might be the way that they arrive at trading. 'Cause
definitely,
They go,
yeah,
but once they discover it, they need to then learn as quickly as possible about the risks,
correct.
about the hard work that might be involved. Because Andrew, you talked about opinion sort of versus facts or news. It's very hard to establish that. And those influencers that are out there, they are giving their opinion, and they're potentially being paid to give their opinion by, brokers or by anybody that's sort of there saying, "Look, drive people to this app or drive people." How do you see the impact that those people are playing in our industry?
Influence, I guess it depends on the region, but I see with my kids, influencers are becoming ever more important. And you've got to have a responsibility with these people, because they're not. I mean, I really don't know too much about the subject, but my 2 cents on it: these guys, these influencers, are not necessarily financially savvy, or they're not in it for the right reasons, or whatever like that. So you got to be careful. And if you come from a regulated background, you got to make sure that you've got your clients' interests at heart. But it really depends. In our industry, there's everywhere we look, there's the murky side and there's the responsible side. And in everything we do, there's always going to be bad players and good players, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting as well, because they may want to get quick rich, but equally this generation cares about climate change. They're ethical and, sorry, go on, jump in.
No, I was going to, you mentioned that earlier. And so I think there's a distinction there between trading and investing. The climate change people and those kind of people, they're interested in investing long-term in things that are going to better our environment. And then you've always got people, whether it's Gen Z or people of my age, who are interested in quick wins and having fun and enjoying stuff. And they want to get in and out something quickly. And the most akin to that is trading. And you can go down to microseconds that some of my hedge funds trade, and all the way up to hourly intraday trading. And the fact that social media has left us with such little concentration level, and kids can't last, or people. I talk about it in my employees. Talk about it, mental health. People can't concentrate for large periods of time. It makes you realize, we are playing into that game of making things instant, gratifyingly instant.
Yeah, but that's where the trust comes in, isn't it? Because they hero worship, potentially negative people like Andrew Tate, who's been in the news recently, and this was someone that people thought was the Messiah, and everything he said was fact and was brilliant. So it's quite hard to gain that trust, I imagine. And then once you have gained it, everything they say then turns to action, doesn't it? Sort of actionable insight, and immediately they'll go and do something. So that presents a challenge, I think, to get heard, get trusted, and then influence people to go and do something.
Talk about the ultimate influencers, Elon Musk. And
he literally asks his users to vote, what should I do next? Which is also the other side of it.
He put a coin, I can't remember what the Shoidu coin or whatever, something like that. He put on his logo on Twitter, and suddenly that went through the roof. And I also personally feel that, I was talking to a client, or hopefully a potential client rather, last night, and there are just some people out there who want to have fun and want to train and almost gamble. And why should we stop them? And, you instantly know if Elon Musk has put that up there, if you've got an ounce of intelligence, it's just a bit of fun. and you can buy into it, and you know you could lose all your money on that. And why can't we let people do that? But you've got to differentiate it from the people who are stupid enough to think that's a good investment. And it's a really tricky one.
But those people originally invested in Tesla, and that was a good investment. So he's gained their trust, and they bought into Tesla, but they bought into him because he is, you know, if he dies, that might be the end, you know. Not to be too morbid.
I actually would like to go back to this trust topic, and Elon Musk was an amazing example. Like this goes well. So in Gen Z and young generations, they like things that are true. So Elon Musk as well is just out there as it is, and this is what is trusted. There's nothing to hide. And I think if we talk about future of brokerage, it's also the financial markets and financial services like cannot be hidden. Nothing can be hidden for them, because if you hide anything, you're making yourself your image to something that you're not. It's something that will not appeal. They would not entertain this. I would say the younger generation. That's at least my experience and my kind of take on this. That when you as well look at the content that is out there, okay, we see a lot of filters and things like that. It makes you want to be someone else maybe a bit. But again, it's quite straightforward, very like speaking your mind. This is the trend that I am seeing. So companies, brokerage, financial services, speak your mind, whatever you do. If you are here to make money and say that you're here to make money, and they would be, much more relatable to you.
Yeah, that's really interesting to just be honest and say, look, what we care about is the bottom line. And that's what we're here for. Because there's a lot of companies that have had to address these ethical issues that we believe Gen Zers care about. And we've got a couple of Gen Zers who work for us, and I don't think they do care that much. I mean, they turn on the air conditioning and they want to drive to work, and yet companies have changed. Lots and lots of press releases involve the things that they've changed, whether it's Adidas or whether it's Lloyd's or whoever. Do you see, Andrew, because presumably that's part of the research you provide to organizations to say, here is some of the trends, here are some of the things that people care about. Have you seen that impact some of the companies you work with? Have they changed their behaviors, or have they changed the way they talk to their potential audience, their potential clients?
I think that the only major thing that's happened is ESG investment, environmental, social, and governance. And that took the industry by storm about 5 years ago. And all the major players out there have come out with ESG data. So every stock can be measured on environmental, social, and governance issues. And within the E and the S and the G, there's hundreds of topics that get measured. And we work in a data area of scanning stocks, and we can easily analyze and tell you which of stocks have issues in, for example, digital efficacy, AI efficacy, and stuff like that. But actually, curiously, being sat here, there are a lot of American brokers, investing brokers, that are interested in that area. And this is where we got to separate between investing and trading. And the only broker that I know in our industry that's looked into and actually publishes ESG data on stocks is Admirals. And
Correct.
Nice plug. These two are working well together here. It's good.
yeah,
We do work together in general.
but it's true. I mean, I'm people come to me to find information because I've been in the industry for a long time. But there are very few people. But that's because ESG and those kind of environmental concerns are really only interesting for investors, not traders. If people want to trade things, they're going to be in and out during the day. They're not going to worry about the emissions of a Tesla.
Okay, but yet you do publish that information, and do you care about that because you believe people? Because there's a general belief that this Generation Z, they want to see accountability. They don't just want to hear some buzzwords about climate change and things like that. They actually want to invest in ethical companies. So you believe it does matter?
I think it does matter, and I think not only Gen Z but to everything else in the world. Why not? And it's to make an impact, right? So yeah, we published our ESG data. We went green as a company in 2020, and we are the way that we incorporate maybe ESGs to our businesses is also building portfolios of ESG companies for people to invest in and onboard different companies to our platform who are ESG related and carbon positive and all this green stuff. So
And that plays into another part of the industry, which we don't really talk about here.
yeah,
She agrees. Is thank you. No,
speak super loud.
she is. Isn't she? She's really loud. Oh,
You
me.
could be
Oh,
you
I
be
thought you were
loud.
insulting her.
No,
Oh,
you'll be
okay.
loud now.
So
Important
I.
topic.
Sorry. Important topic. Okay. So a lot of people on the US side of things talk about ETFs and thematic investments. She doesn't like ETFs. And Admirals, again, offer ETFs. And it goes back a long time. We talk about people wanting to invest in ESG, and that's just a group of stocks that they want to invest in that have good ratings. But for a long time, we've known about tobacco companies and gun companies, and it's always been like, if you really want to make your money in the market, you invest in cigarettes and guns, not in environmentally. It's true. I mean, there's ETFs out there that you can invest in guns and stuff like that. And that's a big area that people, instead of wanting to invest in a stock, will now invest in ETFs because it's a lot easier and quicker. And people can pick stocks, group of stocks based on a theme that they like. And environmental issues is just one of those.
So having that available to them is a really important
It is.
element. So we, as a company, Pelican, have developed something called offset trading, where it takes it a step further, I think, and it allows the broker to allocate a small percentage of their profits or of the profits of their users towards a good cause. So getting plastic out of the oceans, planting trees. And we all know that you can offset your carbon when you get on a flight. And it's my belief, yet of course don't say we're not here to make money. You can't pretend to be sort of a company that, you know, provides welfare or something like that. But do you think your, you know, Admiral, for example, should take that extra step and be responsible themselves for, taking a view on these things and caring about the things that Gen Z care about? Is that something that you guys are interested in or have done anything about?
Yeah, but in 2020 we started being very interested in this and actually communicating it out. So how we do it right now in a scale is that our offices, our carbon footprints are offset. So we are carbon neutral, green, which I think from employer perspective, I think it has an influence there, and as well, it will influence the future product lines of our business as well, as we always looking forward and keep moving forward. Admiral is
That's really interesting. You touch on being an employer because they are quite a demanding workforce, and I think they might come and would rather work for a broker who offsets carbon, something like that, make a difference. But we sort of think of them potentially negatively as the woke snowflake generation who want to work from home and sort of want a pay rise without doing any of the hard work that we feel like we had to do. How do you, just to touch on that briefly, is that something you guys have had to consider when trying to win the brightest and best talent?
You mean talking about carbon neutrality and green in that sense?
And I just wonder if it's something that I suppose what are they like, these sort of have you had to change the way that you employ people? Have you had to change company structures?
This. It's like different world that we're talking about. No, I think we haven't really seen the need to change too much our hiring perspective in that sense. But however, the way the jobs what you offered them and the freedom they would like to have in their job is something to consider. And you also mentioned something in the question of like, you know, how we can make an impact to Gen Z and how can they be part of financial industry and how can we support them, right? It is by maybe employing them, educating them through that way, right? And as well, when we think about how to engage them more to our financial markets or our services, it is to be transparent and do this onboarding super fast for them.
Yeah, of course. I think that we know this generation are going to have some, you know, challenges, whether it's an aging population, shrinking pensions, and just generally not having a lot of disposable income. But do you still think that our industry can appeal to them?
That's a good point. I think certainly yes, because as much as Gen Z is interested in green and all those nice things we need to focus on, they are also interested in making money. So they know what they are less inclined to trust governments, especially in Asia. You know, pensions, funds, everything. It's a bit. It's not that trustworthy that
Yeah, they've
what
seen
you
these
can
things
consider.
fall apart.
They know how they fall apart. They like have gone through COVID and etc. So like you mentioned in earlier. So we really need to provide this financial security to them somehow, right? And if we continue being big corporations, big companies like that, and not caring, then we would actually shoot us in ourselves in the foot, right? So it's
Yeah, absolutely. And then, as you said, you provide something that they can access really quickly and potentially make some money very quickly with sort of minimum attention, potentially.
yeah, but we really want to educate them first because it's
Of course.
for us it's a long
That's
long
part of
term.
it,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's definitely because no one wins if one is losing.
Yeah, absolutely. So at Pelican, we build copy trading solutions, copy trade apps for some of the biggest brokers in the world, and that opens up a really sort of easy way for people to trade. And we're talking about people that want to do it quickly, don't necessarily have a huge amount of knowledge, so they can come on board, and then they can copy people who do know what they're doing. They obviously need to take their time and establish whether that's a risk they want to take as well, because it's not, they're not guaranteed to make money, of course. Do you have a copy trade solution, or is it something that you've looked into or aware
pitch.
of?
Yeah, it's a sales
Yeah.
pitch. We do have copy trading
Shall we
solution
shake hands
also.
now and just say we'll do business?
We certainly will talk about it. But yes, we do have a copy trading solution, and I think what would be an interesting product for Gen Z also is fractional shares. You would have. The financial stability maybe is not there yet, but there's still already young adults who need to kind of and when we talk about onboarding them fast and getting them to our introduced to our products, they can simply test on a demo. And we really focus on that for people to go to demo first, test out their investing and trading skills, learn through that, and as well, why not every month they can put this $2, $3, $10, $100, and build their portfolio for the future. In the end of the day, long term is what we are looking at, yeah, for them.
I think what you guys do is quite interesting. In the sense that you have trading and investing. And there was a long time ago, I remember hearing people saying they offer shares, CFDs and shares, because they don't make money out of shares, but they want to cross-sell people from shares onto FX where they can make more money out of the traders. But actually, I think there's another way of looking at it. I'm not a broker, but you've got to, as I was saying at the beginning, Admirals is open to everyone. There's a bit of Admirals that will suit every type of person, an investor, a trader, a gambler, let's say, in that sense as well. Someone who wants to just come in and have a punt. But it doesn't mean that someone like I have a friend who manages a fund in London of well over $1 billion, and he sometimes he gets a little bit bored and he just goes on and takes a punt on a stock, like for not a binary option. I've forgotten. They're not CFDs in the UK, but something like that. And he's a responsible investor, runs a fund of $1 billion, but he gets bored and he just takes a punt. And so I think you got, just because you've got traders who want to do punting, that they're also going to be people who want to have responsible investing and do long-term ETFs or whatever it may be, and that makes perfectly good business sense.
Absolutely, I totally agree, Andrew. Thanks for touching that topic also.
No worries. And does he actually know when you ask you if you have a copy solution, you already have Pelican Trading? Because that would be really embarrassing.
That's awkward, yeah, that's awkward. Actually, Ava, who are going to be here, they do. So that was going to be an easier topic of conversation. They're going to say, yeah, it's brilliant. We probably need to tie this up. I think we're about to go over our time, but if anyone does have a question, a question we can answer yes or no, that's probably ideal. But if not, don't worry. But if anyone, potentially a Gen Zer, oh yeah, go for it.
I think this lady has a question up here.
Yeah, she's back. She's
Wants
saying
to
this
share,
should have
wants
finished.
to share
That's
with
what
us, yeah. Okay.
Hi. First of all, thank you very much for the valuable insight. My name is Kevin. I'm running the product team for MIFX. We are one of the longest running FX CFD brokerage in Indonesia. I'm actually Acuity's client for a very long time. Very happy with their service.
I'm going to buy you a drink later if you say nice things.
Yep. So in Indonesia, there's recently been a very massive improvement in financial literacy. Stock market is becoming a thing right now because of COVID. People are looking for a more productive way to spend their time, and one of the things they do is either trading or investing. So we believe the next big thing for Indonesia is actually derivative market, FX market, because people will look to diversify their portfolio. But since we are talking about Gen Z, I think one of the underlying challenge with Gen Z is that they are very impulsive because they started at a very young age. They want everything to be instant. They want everything to be seamless. So I've seen some cases in which Gen Z want to tap to a more challenging market like derivative market, for example, but without proper preparation. So they came into the market unprepared. So I want to ask to Andrew and Laura, based on your extensive knowledge and experience, how can we as a brokerage elevate the education process for our Gen Z clients, potential clients, preparing them or nurturing them to be more prepared before embracing the volatility of the market itself? That's all from me. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Yeah, so a little bit more on that education piece and how you sort of emphasize that. Do you want to go first, Laura, or Andrew, do you want to go first? I don't mind.
I can go, yeah. Great topic. Yes, Indonesia is certainly something that is very close to my heart as well. But I think what could really help in Indonesia specifically is all the communities that you have in there, which is more like than 20 or 30 communities who are talking about different stock trading. They're talking about derivatives. They're talking about Sharia trading, Sharia law. For them all to collaborate together and get more bigger audiences to be engaged, right? Indonesia is a big country, so if we talk about specifically Indonesia, then the collaborations between those communities who have bigger reach to get then to wider audience and to rural areas of Indonesia. So come stop by our number 31 booth and let's talk about it, how to do this.
Yeah.
I actually would hand that question back to yourself, because you guys are, if I remember rightly, you're very, very good at having offices on every single town in Indonesia and educating people in classes. And it's world renowned that what you guys do. And you spend a lot of time on education and how to do things. Yeah, there's that. But in terms of futures, I see a lot of companies in Europe as well going into futures, and there's it's very popular in the US as well, futures and options, and so it's coming about face. And I always think, as we clamp down on one area in regulation, there's a rise in another area. So I think there were turbo bonds in Germany or something like that, or turbo something. There's also, and at the end of the day, there's an insatiable desire for people to have a thrill, or have that, not even a thrill, or invest quickly and get out of the market. And you can't stop them from having that. And you can't stop people from finding ways of doing that. And it's better to allow them to do it in a regulated way. And futures, to me, I don't know enough about trading those exactly, but it seems like a slightly more complicated way of doing it. But in the US market, incredibly popular, and in Europe, as such, it's picking up a lot of steam but less advertised, I would say. There's a lot of brokers I know who offer these futures, but I don't see it as pushed as much as CFDs.
Maybe that's because of the regulation doesn't cover it yet, or there's an inherent risk which seems like they don't want to promote too strongly,
or maybe it's pushed more to professionals. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Mostly, it's a little bit more complex, kind of.
Yeah.
That's why.
Did you want to touch? I mean, we probably should. I mean, there's some very interesting things there. Just what you said about boots on the ground, having a physical presence has helped. That company, I can't remember the name, but that's kind of the opposite of what we've been talking about, which is, for a lot of this, which is the online presence, what you can do there with influencers and the correct information being provided. There's also the regulation side of things, which we could have also talked about for a long time, and how you deal with that. Right back to the first thing we said, you can't just put tweets about the warnings. Thank you all very much for coming. It's been really interesting, I think, and thank you both very much for your contributions. It's been fascinating. So thanks very much.
Good.
Thank you.